The early Stuarts. James I. James VI, King of Scotland, succeeded Elizabeth to the throne as James I from 1603 to 1625, becoming the third Stuart King of England. He had been brought up as a Protestant. He was a learnt man who wrote treatises in English and in Latin, but believed in witchcraft. His accession was welcome because he reduced the dangers of civil war. However, he ignored the Parliament and based his rule on theory of the divine rights of kings. He believed that as a monarch, he was a representative of God on earth. He joined Scotland to England and Wales as one kingdom, with two separate parliaments. Great Britain, he introduced a distinctive flag called the Union Jack, a common coinage. The king settled in London, where he took under royal patronage Shakespeare's company, which became the King's Men, and the poets like John Donne and George Herbert. He also ordered the building of the Queen's House in Greenwich by the architect Ingo Jones as a gift to his wife Anne. The Gunpowder Plot. A year after his consecration, James held a conference at Somerset House to sign a peace treaty with Spain. This put an end to the Spanish claim to English throne on one hand, and the English attacks on Spanish ships coming back from America on the other. In 1604 at Hampton Courts, the king met the representatives of the bishops and the Puritans, who were extreme Protestants, to try and solve the conflict between them. They agreed about baptism, ordination, and the civil role of the church. James also ordered a new translation of the Bible, published in 1611, which is considered one of the masterpieces of English literature. The Catholics had been excluded from the Hampton Courts, so a group of them, led by Guy Fawkes, organized the Gunpowder Plot to blow up the Parliament on the 5th of November 1605. The opening of the Parliament on the date would have gathered the King, the Privacy Courts, the peers, MPs, and the royal officials. But the conspiracy was found out, and the plotters were executed. The government did not start a period of prosecutions against the Catholics, but encouraged the public to celebrate a failure of the plot. This became an annual event as Bonfire Night, every 5th November, with fireworks and guys, figure representing Guy Fawkes, which are burnt on bonfires. The Church of England identifies uniformity with the security of the state, and therefore dissents untreated as treason. A direct consequence was the immigration of many descenders to the New World. In 1620, the Pilgrim Fathers, religious descenders, who had first taken shelter in Holland, left England for America on the Mayflower and found Plymouth in Massachusetts. Charles I. James' son, Charles I, from 1625 to 1649, was very fond of art and patronized painters like Peter Paul Rubens and Anthony van Dyck, creating one of Europe's greatest art collections. He married Henrietta Maria, the Catholic daughter of the King of France. Like his father, he avoided Parliament and ruled 11 years without it. The Commons were strongly Protestant and denied the king money for more than years at the time. This confrontation led to the Petition of the Rights of 1628, which stated that the king could not imprison without trial or impose taxes without the consent of the Commons. The petition became the foundation of all later declarations of civil rights, but Charles dismissed it because he thought that he was king by the divine right. In 1635, he used his royal prerogative to extend ship money, a tax on coastal towns for their defense, as he needed money to pay his armies to fight a rebellion in Scotland. The king was forced to summon a so-called short parliament in 1640, which refused to give him the money. A new parliament was elected in the same year, the so-called Long Parliament. It became one of the greatest institutions of English history because it reflects the change in wealth that had taken place in the Tudor period, which a shift from the medieval church and the landed aristocracy to the rising middle class and small landowners, city merchants, and professionals. It was this new middle class who wanted the king to be subject to Parliament. The Parliament worked to assert control over the king, passing laws to reduce his power. In 1642, Charles entered the House of Commons to arrest its 5 most extreme MPs, but they had already escaped. The king raised an army of royalists to declare war. The parliamentarians, the king's opponents, prepared to fight back. The civil war had begun.